Welcome back to the AAA podcast, the show that gives you access all areas to everything music, nightlife, and everything in between. Today is a little different. We've actually got Darby with us, who's our production manager. So we're going to go through more about how we started. So we'll get Joel to kick it off first, since you're next to me. So how did you get started in this industry? And tell us a bit more about yourself.
Well, firstly, my parents are both musical. My mum was originally a singer and my dad's a bass player, and now he does music production, sound engineering and all that kind of studio work as well. So originally, when I was about 17, so my dad still currently lives in Switzerland, which is where I was born, and then when my parents split, we came here and my dad stayed there. So I went to live in Switzerland for about a year when I was 17, and that's when I kind of got a taste for music and all that sort of stuff. Going to gigs with my dad and all the rest. I met some interesting people over in Switzerland and just saw what my dad did in the studio and all that sort of stuff. Then I met these guys that were like Swiss hip-hop rappers and like beat makers and stuff like that. They used to go to like rap battles, and then they'd come over to my dad's house all the time and they'd be like, oh, you got to rap because you speak English. Like they're like, oh, yeah, that'll be sick over here. So I was like, oh, yeah, right. So I kind of around doing a bit of freestyle rapping. They'd put on like beats and all the rest. I wasn't doing any like DJing or anything as such. I just kind of like play some old records on like the old vinyls and stuff.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like mixing or doing any DJ kind of stuff with it. And then like in my dad's studio, I wasn't really making beats or anything as such. I was more so just listening to beats and that, trying to like write a rap or put one over the top. So that's kind of my first initial thing within music. And then like in terms of like events and festivals and that kind of stuff, because my dad was working at like nightclubs and he was going to a lot of events, although I was still only like 16, 17, I got access to go to like some goal parties, which is like a psy-trance kind of like and they had like minimal and shit back then. This is going back 8 years ago. So I was getting access to like these massive outdoor festivals and stuff in like forests, and I was going to like underground kind of what you'd class here as a rave, but like because the culture's different, it's kind of like a different vibe and stuff.
So is that and that's in Switzerland?
Yeah, in Switzerland. Yeah. So yeah, they'd have these parties in like warehouse basements and they'd have them out in the forest and stuff. Kind of like a doof here, but like...
It's different music.
Yeah, and just the whole vibe's different. I say it's a lot classier.
Well, I mean, being Europe, they've probably perfected a lot of the psytrance and I guess the sort of electronica sort of stuff more originated in Europe, and we sort of just borrow genres from other places. So I guess it's sort of, I don't know, that's possibly one reason why it's slightly different.
Yeah, I'd say it's a lot more developed there.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more organised.
Well, it shows how far we are behind. How long ago? Like
this was
years?
8 years ago, but it had obviously been going on for years.
Whereas you've got like not really here in Perth, but over east, like they're only picking up like minimal, and I guess trance is pretty big over here now. But it's like we are behind.
Yeah, I'd say here it's stayed underground, which is it's kind of underground there too. But like the whole culture and like the event scene behind it, has always been established. Because like I was going to like 2,000 people in like an old abandoned Roman theatre. And then they'd still have food trucks and like lists of DJs and well-developed laser shows and everything for something that was most of the part illegal.
Yeah.
But yeah, they made it happen over there.
They kind of get away with it a bit.
Yeah, it's like...
It's illegal, but everyone kind of
like,
knows.
Yeah, with those kind of illegal things and like drugs and all that. Yeah, it's not legal, but I think a lot of it's kind of like turned a blind eye to over there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you're kind of releasing it to everyone now, aren't you?
We are very far away. We are very far away. It's nothing no one that's been there doesn't know about. But yeah, anyway, so came back to Australia, and then from there kind of carried on with the rap and stuff. Try to get some of my mates on board, but obviously like the infrastructure and like what like studios and all that, I didn't have access to what I had over in Switzerland, so it kind of like phased out a little bit. Then like in between had a son and all the rest. So then, yeah, people know how that goes. People know how that goes. And then, yeah, it took a while. And then all of a sudden I was driving down the road one day and I saw like DJ course advertised. And I was like, oh, yeah, that looks all right. So I kind of went to in one of the industrial areas. I'm not going to go saying names and giving away locations because people will be able to narrow it down. But anyway, I was in an industrial area after work, I think. And then I just saw this sign. It looked a bit cheesy, I could say, but I thought I'd go check it out. The bloke was pretty cheesy and quirky as well. But I ended up, once you got the basic skills, you're like, oh, yeah, okay.
At least it's not false advertising. Simon cheesy and he's cheesy.
Well, he's a cheesy as and I actually got another mate who but I won't go saying too many names. He went through the same place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he learnt there as well. You know him quite well. Anyway, so I pretty much learnt the basic skills and the foundation of like DJing and all that through this place. And then kind of dropped off going there because I was like, I'm going to pick up doing it my own way because I didn't like the way they did it. And like they were getting me gigs, but it was cheesy as gigs. It was more like wedding kind of shit. And I was like, I don't want to be a wedding DJ.
Yeah.
So I started doing more my own kind of private gigs and doing weddings because they pay good and all the rest. Then I actually started doing, I can't remember how I thought about doing it. I think it was my little sister actually. She said something about underage nightclubs. So I kind of started doing a few underage events. Jeez, I wouldn't do it again because of the legalities and like looking like, oh, you're that guy?
Yeah.
You do underage events? Yeah, but this is where it gets interesting. Okay, so I got hit up on Facebook because these people are like, oh, did you host that underage event? And I was like, yeah. They're like, how would you like to host my ball after party?
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And so I just kind of looked into it a bit. And then I was like, oh, do you know, I could probably make this happen. I could probably make a decent profit out of this as well, like considering the logistics and like the everything else involved. And so I was like, yeah, do you know what? And I had a good group of young guys as well from the first event I hosted. So I was just like, all right, I'll get these guys on board, see what they think about it. They're like, yeah, man. So basically, a ball afters, you have your high school ball.
Yeah.
It finishes, say like after midnight till about 4 a.m. This is your time. So it's illegal. It's practically a rave, and it's what the council and parents and everyone in between don't like. But people that are 17, 18 years old and love 16. This shit. Yeah. And anyone else who can get access that shouldn't be there loves this shit. That's okay. So hosted one of those. And then it just went off like wildfire. I was just getting messages left, right, and saying, hey, can you do another one? Can you do another one? So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 in total. Made a little bit of decent coin. Everyone else loved it. But then what happened? First one, cops. Second one, cops. Third one, cops. Fourth one, cops. But each time it was gradually more and more and more and more. And I'm not going to name the council and I'm not going to name the location. But the place... the local council, I should say, by the end of it, knew me by name. And the very, very last one, I reckon there was at least 15 cop cars on that street, and they didn't send your normal uniformed police officers.
Yeah.
They sent the...
Riot squad?
The response unit.
Oh, the rapid response.
They were like...
The tactical guys?
The tactical guys. They had the full, like, long everything.
Yeah.
And it was, like, up to their neck. It looked like they were ready to grab a shield, a baton, and a helmet, if needed. You know what I mean? They were there to completely shut things down.
Rapid response unit. Look, when you get to that point, when you've got when you got basically the Perth version of the SWAT.
Yeah, basically.
At your party.
And, like, if I can give you, like, some kind of idea of what we were running with. So we're in an industrial area. We had about 6 speaker tops. We had 4 subwoofers of a high level. They weren't just your run-of-the-mill 1,000 watts each. We'd have a lineup of about 6 DJs. We had the latest kind of club gear on stage, and we would pack in about 400 to 500 people, which by the end of it was originally catered for the graduate students. But we had people up to the age of 26 trying to get into our events because they knew it was going to be hot.
That's crazy.
And it wasn't like your run-of-the-mill rave where we only played one kind of genre of music. We like made sure everybody was entertained. We had hip-hop going on. We had EDM. We had dubstep. We had D&B guys. We made sure it got lit. We had guys getting up doing like raps, all sorts of shit. We had CO2. We had fucking geysers. We had fucking marquees if the weather wasn't going to let up. Like we made it happen. That's why people attended this shit, but it just got ruined because it was illegal and it was spreading.
So do you think that your time growing up in Switzerland kind of influenced this? Because
it definitely did, because I had this high level of what I knew and what I had seen, and I kind of tried to recreate that, but yeah, you just can't do that here. Or you can't do that in the area I try to do it in. But yeah. So anyway, from there and events and doing some illegal shit, I kind of moved on to less illegal stuff, but that kind of phased out because I was just like, kind of bored with doing all this shit. So I've just kind of been club DJing and picking up a little bit of music production as I've been going, and yeah, that's been working out quite well for me.
So I guess it's like going from a music family growing up, being in Switzerland, using that to kind of come over here, and then that's kind of influenced you like growing up until now.
Oh yeah, big time. Like Switzerland was my foundation. If anyone ever said, like music and like finding yourself and all that kind of stuff, where people got these long stories and they're like, I was out in the desert and all this sort of shit and tripping on acid, and then an eagle flew over the sky. Like that's my version of that. Is going to Switzerland when I was 17 years old.
You just talking to someone 2 hours north up in the sand dunes in Lanceland. That's where they found themselves.
Yeah. Also, not that it's completely relevant, but like, yeah, when I was kind of in my teen years and all that kind of shit, like especially the area I grew up in, like everybody loved taking substances and getting on the drugs and pingers and shit like that. So like, obviously, like people that are hanging around in that environment are always, you're always getting access to like dodgy shit. But not just that, like it's the music associated with it. Like I knew heaps of guys and they're like, look, I like pinger music, that's what they called it, but I just don't like the pingers.
Yeah.
Like your whole, what was it back then? You had your festivals like Good Vibrations, you had Future Music.
Good Vibrations, Future Music, Stereosonic. And then...
like all this kind of music and stuff, it attracted the drug users. Like not to say that the fucking artists themselves were promoting that, but the crowds definitely like to take a bit of something.
But it comes with the culture.
Oh yeah. It comes with the culture. Just like that's the other thing about Europe as well. Is like in Europe, people drink, people get pissed, people probably take more drugs than they do here. But culturally, it's different, and people don't want to have a fight at the end of the night.
I feel like the Swiss are just sensible. Like they're just
if you bump into people at those parties I was just telling you about, you never had a problem. People would be so apologetic. They're like, oh, sorry. Or Entschuldigung, which means like, excuse me kind of thing in German. Entschuldigung. Yeah, but anyway.
Well, don't say we don't teach you anything here.
Yeah, but I remember one night, especially when I was in Switzerland, and one of the DJs, look, he had more drugs than anybody at the actual party himself. And when he started his first song up, people were kind of like, oh yeah, this is shit. And he had this massive build up. And when the drop came in, everybody just went mental.
Was this here or in Switzerland?
This was in Switzerland, man.
Okay.
And I remember I went to a party once and it just didn't stop. People came in their vans, pitched tents, and I'm pretty sure it went for a solid 48 hours.
It's like the newer version of Woodstock.
Oh, there's nothing new about this, man. But yeah. Yeah, that's why people like... Yeah. In some ways, Europe is overrated, but in some ways, it lives up to its name.
Yeah.
And depending where you go.
I think it all depends on where you kind of travel to, as to like the music changes everywhere. Like even within Australia, you go different state to different state, and you've got different types of music. Like
yeah.
So I guess over there, I've never been, so I can't say. Obviously, you were born there, but like if you go from say Switzerland to somewhere else in Europe, obviously the music. They've got that general vibe, but there's still difference in...
You'll still always have your top trendy nightclubs that will play what's currently trending, and you'll still have your urban places that will play your hip-hop and your R&B and that. But then you will have your underground places that are, say, strictly house, strictly trance, strictly drum and bass, for instance. Yeah. And that's all over Europe. Like that, I'd say that's similar in England, that'd be similar in Germany, that'd be similar in Holland.
See, like one of my favourite... It was a favourite funny video, but back onto track, like it was a DJ playing on the balcony of a house and they were in the Alps. Yeah. And it was just a big rave out there. And like that to me, like you'd never see that sort of thing over here. And it's it just seems so like it was snowing out there. Like, like us Australians, like when it's like 1 degree outside, we won't even walk outside unless we're rugged up. But these guys are really getting into it, and it's just totally like it just looks like a totally different culture. And that's, I guess, as well what you were saying with how every sort of area sort of changes the music. Well, I guess like Europe itself, I think, kind of started a lot of the EDM scene. In a way.
Yeah,
like,
I'd say for sure.
Like even the biggest drum and bass and dubstep festival in the world is hosted in Belgium.
Yeah, and still some of your biggest EDM festivals and all the rest.
Well, Tomorrowland was...
Yeah.
That started out as, I think, less than 10,000 people.
Yeah, like look at some of these lineups, man. Like majority of the lineup is European DJs and producers.
Everyone comes out of Europe somewhere.
Yeah.
Like it's just how it is. It's like we'll produce certain things that... not necessarily music, but in general, we'll produce certain things that other countries can't. They just produce musicians. Just great.
And even if you group, say, the UK, which is a stone throw from Europe, as that part of the world as well, like that's massive. That's
then
in terms of music and music culture.
Oh, yeah.
That's where it all kind of originated.
Grime, drum and bass, all that sort of stuff.
Even the older stuff. You know what I mean? Like going back to Spice Girls, rock and roll,
Beatles and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I guess like if we go, it's just that. I think that part, like I don't know, it is something about Europe as a generalization that is totally different to.
Oh yeah, even countries, man, like going from, say Europe to Asia to Australia, Africa, man, everywhere you go, it just has that different vibe about it. Same as with like drinking and like that kind of culture. Like Australia's hot, Asia's humid. Like you feel completely different consuming alcohol, the same drink, just in a different place.
Well, I think that's what you said, Darby, like about the whole Alps thing.
Yeah.
But like if you flip that around, you wouldn't see them in 30, 40 degree heat standing in a festival. They'd all pass out. It's a heat wave at 25 degrees. So I guess if you flip it around, it's the same thing, but it's just a different scenario.
We're acclimatized.
We wouldn't. Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't freeze to death. Whereas I don't think that they'd just freak out in the sun. Yeah. I guess it's interesting to find out where you've kind of come from. You've basically come. Why aren't you this massive producer now? You've come from. You come from Switzerland.
I had X amount of time in Europe. Maybe if I had 5 years there, maybe it would have been a different outcome.
Why weren't you a producer by 3, huh?
I was living here when I was 3.
When did you move? When
I was 2.5.
2.5?
Yeah.
And why weren't you producing by 2?
Sorry, I was trying to learn English.
You're still trying to learn English?
Yeah, well, there you go.
Well, I guess it's interesting to learn about you.
Dankeschön, Joel.
What does that mean?
So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In Swiss German.
Swiss or German?
German.
It's
very formal.
Okay.
Dankeschön.
So what was the word you said before?
Entschuldigung.
And that means?
Excuse me.
Excuse me. Pardon me.
Okay, and you said what?
I said Dankeschön.
Which is like thank you.
Yeah, very formal.
Okay. All right, cool. 2 words that we've learnt so far. Back at the AAA, what would you call it? Language school.
Worldwide.
Well, let's jump into you, Darby. You're obviously next. So how did you get into this industry, or how did it kind of come about?
Well, unlike Joel, I'm a little bit more new to the industry. I never had my international experience or even my sort of outside of this sort of general area, outside of the Perth area sort of experience. But anyway, so pretty much I've sort of got 2 avenues into this industry. So one of them primarily photography, and the other one sort of like sound and stuff like that, and mixing live bands and everything like that. So
sound engineering.
Yeah, sound engineering. Essentially, so they sort of ran parallel to each other, and So so in the sort of nightclubby sort of scene, I actually started off like as a lot of nightclub photographers actually doing friends' birthday parties and stuff like that, like sort of getting into photography and doing your sunsets and all the Instagram-y typical stuff. And then someone was like, hey, you have a camera, come take photos at our party. So started doing that, then started getting more and more traction doing that. And then there was a group of DJs who was doing a lot of the parties in that same area. And they pretty much were just like, hey, we have a nightclub event coming up. And at the time, I was very much no nightclub, get like full sleep Christian boy. So for me to get like asked to shoot at a nightclub, I was just like, oh my goodness, that's where like sex and hookers hang out, and that's where drugs are taken and stuff. That's
you got one out of the three, right?
Well,
That's where sex and hookers hang out.
I wasn't talking about the drugs or the hookers either.
well, yeah, like I said, I had no other nightclub experience there, and so my first nightclub night, of course, first nightclub night, you're either excited or you're terrified or both, and I was totally sober, and I had a
How
camera.
old were you? Sorry.
I was 18.
Okay, so you were freshly 18.
Yeah, freshly 18, and pretty much got launched into it. And then so did a couple of their nightclub events, and then the venue which you were shooting at the time. You went away from the venue, and they were just like, "Hey, we need another photographer," and they asked me to do it. And then sort of went from there. I did another one of their venues, and then started getting sort of the name out, and then started doing more and more events like up this way, and then ran into you, and then doing video projects with you and stuff like that, and waking up at 3:30 a.m. and filming some rowing and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it's that's sort of my avenue on the photography and videography side of things. But then going on the other side with sound engineering, I guess we're all sort of similar in the fact that our sort of families and our parents all very much in tune with music. So while yours is sort of the more classic 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s rock and sort of
Well, I'll get into that when I get to my turn.
when you get sorry. I'll let you elaborate on that, but you had your
Darby,
dad who was doing.
Sorry, you're talking to Joel. Just for people that are listening, they're like you and you and you.
Oh yeah. So Joel, your dad was involved in music production and stuff like that. So my dad does the same thing. So country music, which is quite a little bit of a barrier between the sort of the music that that you sort of typically be used to. But so my dad performing country music shows and stuff like that, and I, as a result, always grew up with music. So Hank Williams and Buddy Holly and like a lot of the other sort of guys in that. And then then I started doing sound at church and stuff like that, and then started doing more and more sound events, and then eventually got to the point where I was mixing bands and stuff like that, and that's sort of the other avenue in the same industry. So yeah.
Back to the sex and prostitutes. One night after an event,
Of course, you've got a story about this.
one night after an event, this young boy who was doing a little bit of videography, his mum sent me a message, pretty much not even directly to me, to the event page. Yeah. So, ripping me a new arsehole. I can't remember what the opening line was. It was something like, "Never again." I was like, oh, okay. All right. What's going on here then? She's going, "The people at your event were absolutely animals. They were taking drugs and all this sort of and this and that." So I took a screenshot, sent it to my mate who organised this guy, and he goes, "Send back a message saying this is just the industry."
I think people are just oblivious to, like, either you're oblivious to it or you don't want to accept.
Well,
Turn
this
a blind eye.
young bloke, he came from a similar situation what Darby was saying, where nightclubs, that's where sex and prostitutes and drugs hang out. His parents were all Christian, and this guy went to like a Christian school. Not to say that there's no bad comes from a Christian school. Not saying not saying all bad does. I'm not saying all good does. But
I'm not any part of this. This
but
is all you, Joel.
no stab at Christian schools. But I'm saying not only good apples fall from the tree at a Christian school, but yeah. Anyway, so he grew up.
We know Adam ate the apple.
He was influenced. Anyway. Yeah. So this guy grew up quite sheltered, and then he got a bit of a shock. But I don't know why he went home and told his mum all about it.
Maybe was he editing it? Maybe she saw.
Nah, I don't think she did. He still fully went through with the work and got paid with it, but his mum just decided to rip me a new one between.
Maybe he was like not bragging about it, but like, guess what happened? This happened.
My mum was just
I don't know, but
don't get punched and then you'll be right. That was my mum.
Don't get punched.
Don't get punched. Well, in the area that I was in, that was a regular occurrence.
Yeah,
and
fair enough.
Was eventually the downfall of a couple things, but yeah.
So, Lewis, how did you get into all this?
I guess like all of our situations are the same. Just before I go, I'm just going to point something out because it's bothering me. No one can see this except me. Your headphones, your left and right are around the wrong way. Can you switch them, Joel? I'm sorry.
Something was a bit uncomfortable.
I've just been staring at it for the last half an hour.
Oh, that feels better.
See, there we go. I think Darby's is right. I can't see yours, so it
No,
doesn't
mine
matter.
are right because
Otherwise, you'd see him.
yeah, exactly. Haha.
There we go. All right, well, look, let's jump into it. So, how did I start out? Well, I guess the backstory is that my dad's a professional musician. He has been for the last 30 years. So I kind of grew up as a kid at from a very young age going to events, and he's played for a lot of fairly large bands throughout Perth and Australia. So I was exposed to that when I was younger. Kind of worked went to school, worked a normal job, kind of dropped out of school and didn't really do anything. And then when I turned about 18, I started heading down to the local nightclub and drinking.
As you
Getting
do.
amongst it.
Yeah, I won't name where it is, but everyone knows.
Yeah.
Sex and hookers.
Yeah.
Sex, drugs, and hookers.
That'll be our new slogan. So basically, I was there just drinking. I literally went every weekend, Friday and Saturday. I don't know why. I just used to drink. One morning, I was 6 a.m. It was one of those. Usually, it's a girlfriend or an ex-girlfriend that you text when you're absolutely smashed. I ended up texting the event manager for the venue and basically just said to him, I was like, "Look, is there anything I can do at the club to help?" Sorry. And I think I fell asleep. I remember I was on the couch. I was on the couch and I messaged him.
At the nightclub.
No, I was at home. It was like 6 a.m. At the nightclub. And the sun was going up. That was the times when I could actually stay up. I'd head down at midnight and I wouldn't come home until the sunrise. I can't do that anymore. I'm way too old for that now.
Says the young man.
Well, Darby's the youngest out of
People
all
are
of
going to
us.
watch like this footage and be like, what are these young guys complaining about?
No, but I think you can both agree when you've been in the industry, like 5 years in this industry is 15 years anywhere
Of
else.
partying. Yeah.
No, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like how I said about those all-night gigs. Like I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, well, like I do this from
Actually, I can on holiday.
on holiday.
Yeah.
But when you're doing this from I do this from Thursday to Sunday. I'm working at venues, so it kind of you get drained.
Oh,
from
yeah,
it.
yeah. Working and attending is two different things.
Oh, totally. And I can't attend without working. It just I can't do it anymore. It's just something about it. But anyway, getting back to how I got started. So I messaged him. I think I fell asleep. Woke up the next day and kind of had a chat. And he was like, "Do you know how to use a camera?" And I did a few camera classes when I was back in high school. Not to brag, but it was the only class I got an A in. Thank you very much. In year 10, I think. That was it. I dropped out in year 11. So
I got an A and I didn't even submit the final assignment.
So was talking to him. He ended up buying me a camera. Got a $500 camera. For anyone asking, it's a 1000D Canon. It was Look, it wasn't the best camera, and the photos, I've found the photos, and they are horrid. I'm very, very bad photos. I don't know why I got hired. Kind of did that, and then I was working for that nightclub. I ended up working for them and getting paid for it. I think I was doing it for 6 months or a year or whatever it was, and then just stopped. And I was working full-time anyway, so it was kind of just a hobby. I was just making money on the side. I didn't really care. And then I went down to said nightclub I wasn't working. I'd stopped working after a while to see an act that was playing. One of my friends knew the act, went back to my friend's apartment and started talking to them. And they said to me, they were like, "Look, do you need a photographer? Are you a photographer?" And got chatted and they were like, "We've got a gig next week with said artist." I won't name who the artist is because you can kind of put it together. And yeah, I just went from there. Started working for them. They supported this artist, and I took photos, and it just grew from there. I kind of worked for them for about a year or two, and then just grew my business from there. And that's pretty much it. That's all I've been doing. I've been doing it since I was, I guess, 18. Everything just kind of fell into place. I don't drink anymore, but ironically, how I got started was by drinking.
You drank your way into the industry.
I drank my way into the industry, and now I drink water. Now that I'm in here, I'm kind of like, I'm going to drink water. I don't.
The nightclub was getting that much money out of you. They were like, we've got to give him back money somehow.
Look,
but
to be honest,
we want something from him.
For reference, at 18 years old, I was doing. Actually, now that I think about it, I didn't actually pay. I was getting drink cards, so they weren't really getting any money out of me. But I could probably drink about 10 Jacks a night. 10 stubbies as well, just to.
Pretty sure when I was 18, I'd wake up in the morning and it was like a competition, all right? One guy would say, I spent $80 last night. Then I'd say, I spent $200 last night. Then the next guy would go, I spent $300 last night.
Mine was the other way around. It was, man, I saved $200 last night. I spent this many drink cards. And then you'd save them and then you'd use them the next week. It was brilliant. But yeah, that's how I got in. It wasn't really anything too extravagant. But I guess my whole thing was networking.
Yeah.
Like it essentially, when you take the alcohol out of it, it was one, I guess for anyone that's kind of like trying to get in the industry or work out, networking is key. But the whole just asking, I was drunk. Maybe if I wasn't drunk, I wouldn't have sent that text message, but I did.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it just worked out and grew from there. That's all it is, to be honest. I guess half the time when you kind of like, I'm not in no way massive in this industry, but I guess when you get to people that are huge, the way that they've grown is through networking, and sometimes you don't know exactly how you actually got there.
Yeah, it's just doing the job's like only half the job.
Yeah.
You got everything else.
And I think we spoke about this last week when we were talking with Ollie, is that like you can have someone that's extremely good at what they do, but if you can't talk, you can't network, you're not going to really...
You can't sell it.
Yeah.
And you've got to sell it.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to work with an idiot.
Yeah, you're a private contractor when you do work like we do.
Mm. Yeah.
Even if it is just casually or part-time or on the weekends or once a month or once a week, you're still privately contracting your service.
Yeah, definitely.
So unless you can sell it, no one's going to buy it.
Yeah. Well, it's with any service. Like if you look at like a plumber or anything like that, it's kind of like...
Yeah, if you're working for yourself.
Yeah, you don't want to deal with a shitty plumber or like... Well, hang on, that was a really bad pun that I didn't think about until after I said it. A shitty plumber. Get it? Get it?
Yeah,
yeah, all right, cool. Sorry, it popped into my head.
It was a dad joke and you don't have kids.
Yeah, you do. You should have said it.
Just because I'm a dad doesn't mean to act like one.
No, I guess...
Have you got another joke in the pipes? In the pipeline, should I say?
In the shit line?
That was terrible. Well, let's move on from the jokes.
Did you push too hard?
No.
Okay.
Well, look, I guess thank you for listening to us, guys, getting to know us a bit more. If you want to find out more about us, we're going to do these kind of videos every fortnight. So we'll have like an interview with someone, and then in between weeks we'll do these videos. So we're kind of chatting. If you've got any questions, topics, any suggestions or anything, leave them in the comments below, obviously on YouTube. Otherwise, DM us on all our socials, and yeah, we'll pick them up and go through them all. But yeah.
I suppose one thing we should make very sort of clear, Joel's a DJ, Lewis is a photographer, videographer, and I'm a photographer and sound guy.
And he's got a big set of jugs. That's why he put his hands out like that.
Yeah.
And that was a visual. I'm going to make that the thumbnail now.
Oh, no. but yes, because I don't think we established that at first.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I guess... but I guess you kind of dabble. We're all in the music industry.
Yeah,
so.
we all, when needed, we all do a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Like Lewis's old profile picture, sitting in front of a set of CDJs.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Well, that was a bit that I left out. That I didn't. I kind of had the choice. Sorry, just to jump back into it. Thank you for reminding me. That I had the choice. So when I was approached by those DJs to work with them, at the time I was trying to DJ. I was trying to be like Joel, actually.
What the supposed to be? You wanted to be a mad dog?
I wanted to be like a
party in the Swiss Alps.
No, but I basically had the choice. I had CDJs at the time, and it was either keep DJing and try. Like I hadn't DJed at the club. I wanted to DJ at the club, and I was kind of. I think when I sent a text message, I was hoping that's what I was going to get back was, "Hey, you can DJ." But I had the choice. It was yeah,
It all makes sense now. But instead he said, what I'll do is I'll go buy you a camera.
yeah. Well, but basically, I had the choice of either, because he ended up having to sell that camera because it was his, and it was either keep DJing and kind of try and break into that market, or sell all my gear and become a photographer. And that's how I started. That's how I bought my first camera, is selling all my DJ gear. So just to fill it in and grew from there. So, but look, we'll wrap it up now. Keep this one nice and short. So thank you for listening to us. Give us a like, subscribe, whatever you need to do on whatever platform you're listening to us. But thank you for listening to the AAA podcast, the show that gives you access all areas to everything music, nightlife, and everything in between. And we'll see you soon.